Hello everyone, welcome to the very first episode of A Bird's Eye View. My name is Noreen and I'm here today with my co-host Kabi.
Hi, in our podcast we will discuss COVID-19, mental health, and how to combat it. Since today's our first episode, we're going to be a bit more educational than normal, but stay tuned as the more episodes come out, the wittier they will be.
In today's episode, we will discuss the origins of COVID and how it has impacted the world's mental health. Be sure to stick around to the end as we will share some of our wacky quarantine stories.
Before we get into how COVID-19 started, let's talk about what COVID is. First, let's talk about coronavirus. Coronavirus isn't actually a COVID-19 itself. Coronaviruses are a family of viruses that cause illnesses in humans and animals. There have been several cases of coronaviruses, such as the most infamous COVID-19, SARS, and MERS. Only 7 types of viruses infect humans, 3 of which evolved from animal strains.
SARS-CoV-2, aka Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome Coronavirus 2, is a coronavirus strain responsible for COVID-19. But we're going to refer to it as COVID because that is way too hard to say at once. COVID is spread through droplets from an infected person whenever the person talks, breathes, or sneezes. You get the point. Once a person is infected, symptoms will start to show within 2 to 14 days of exposure.
Some of the many symptoms include cough, sore throat, fever, loss of taste and smell, headache, nausea, congestion, runny nose, and muscle pain. Basically, what you feel when you get the flu, which is why many people believe that COVID-19 isn't as serious as cases tend to be mild for teens and kids. But while that may be true, cases can still be very threatening to older generations and people with disabilities and other illnesses. Anyways, once you're infected, you can remain contagious for up to 20 days.
So how can we prevent it? As of now, there is no 100% cure for COVID, but there are many things we can do to stay safe and lessen the chance of contracting it. The most obvious is wearing a mask. By wearing a mask, you don't allow any infected droplets to enter your system. Be sure to always wash your hands when possible and sanitize your hands constantly to prevent lingering droplets on your hands from infecting you. Social distance from people as much as you can when you're in public, and be sure to get that vaccine.
There are many types of vaccines available for COVID-19, but 4 main types of vaccines are the mRNA, viral vector, protein subunit, and even plant-based ones. Out of these 4, there are currently 6 approved vaccines in Canada: Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Johnson J. COVID, aka Johnson & Johnson, Novavax, and Medicago. You will need 2 doses for most of them, including a booster shot if needed.
For more information about the vaccines and your eligibility, that's a hard word, for them, please visit the official Government of Canada website.
Okay, so now we know what COVID is and how to stay safe from it. But where did it come from? I heard that it was a lab leak in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Is that true?
Overwhelming consensus that it did not originate in a lab leak. So don't worry, Kabi, the apocalypse isn't coming.
Phew.
Just yet. While scientists are still trying to pinpoint the exact origins of COVID, there's an overwhelming consensus that it did not originate in a lab leak. So don't worry, Kabi, the apocalypse isn't coming.
Phew.
Just yet. Scientists believe COVID came from the Wuhan wet market. A photo from 2014 was leaked that showed the Wuhan wet market filled with stalls of exotic animals, dead and alive.
Yikes.
They were selling these creatures as food, and scientists believe that COVID-19 transferred from a bat to a human via consumption. The earliest cases of COVID were in December of 2019, hence the 19 in COVID-19, with the highest density of cases being near the wet market. During this time, Chinese citizens started sharing their concerns and asking for help on Weibo, which is a Chinese microblogging app. But sadly, it was too late. Slowly but surely, the dense areas of people with COVID started shifting from Wuhan to all around the world in early 2020. We were put into quarantine mid-March, and the rest is history.
Now, you may be wondering, what's the connection between COVID and declining mental health? Well, many survivors of COVID have said that they had to deal with paranoia, depression, and even the thought of suicide while they had COVID, and even after. Hospitals have claimed that many patients were found with anxiety, delusions, and hallucinations. Even people who have not contracted the disease have stated that they have a large sense of fear that they or their loved ones may contract COVID. Many are also stressed and concerned about their employment and finances.
50% of Canadians have reported their mental health worsening since the beginning of the pandemic, while another 41% of Canadians are feeling worried and 41% feeling anxious. 81% of Canadian workers have claimed that the pandemic is negatively impacting their mental health. 81%. Kabi, do you know how many people that is?
Not really.
That is 12 million people, Kabi. That is almost double the population of Singapore. But not only has COVID affected people's mental health, but it's slowly affected their physical health. 25% of Canadians aged 35 to 54 and 21% of Canadians aged 18 to 34 have turned to substance abuse to cope with their anxiety. While most of the substance abuse being abused is alcohol, many have turned towards other harder drugs. With so many people struggling, what can we do to help?
While having people's mental health be completely fine is impossible, of course, there are many things we can do to help. You can go on walks, whether it be alone, with family, or with friends, or even with your pet. Walking helps increase blood flow and circulation to the brain and body, thus improving your mood. Speaking of walking with people, be sure to talk to your friends so you don't end up feeling lonely.
Some life advice incoming. Be sure to have friends that you feel comfortable with talking about your feelings. Trust me, if you can't go to your friends for help, they're not your real friends.
You're so right, Noreen, but next time don't cut me off. Let me continue. Find ways to relax, whether that be exercising, doing yoga, meditating, or whatever you can to ease your mind. Taking care of your body will also help increase your mental health. So be sure to eat healthily and keep up a regular sleep schedule. Also, try your best to limit substance use. While it may make you feel good at the time, later on you'll feel worse than how you started. And finally, take a break from those news stories. Keeping up with COVID-19 updates all the time will only make you feel more stressed. You can keep up with the news, but limit yourself to how much of that media you consume.
And with that, we're at the end of our informational segment. Time to go to what you're all here for. Funny COVID stories. I'll go first. So for some background information, I have a 7-year-old sister named Nirvana, who was 5 at the start of the pandemic. And as we all know, 5-year-olds have 0 thoughts in their brain. So instead of one funny COVID story, I will tell you some of my favorite early quarantine Nirvana stories. So, one day, Nirvana was feeling extra clingy and would not let go of me or let me leave my room. So I told her that if she wanted to do something, she would have to ask. So she did, and I said no. She didn't care that I said no and continued to cling on to me when I started telling her that I said no, and started trying to teach her consent in a way. She started screaming, "No means yes," or how she said it, "No mean a yes," until I kicked her out with force. The second story starts when it's night and I'm getting ready to go to bed. Suddenly, a little dwarf comes wrapped around in a blanket to mimic a Shari. I asked Nirvana what she was doing, but she wouldn't tell me. She claimed that she was my mom and wouldn't stop until I started pestering for her name, and then she decided to dramatically exit.
Noreen, what's wrong with your sister?
A lot. And trust me, I'm not done. The next story is about when my sister really wanted a banana, but we didn't have any bananas in the house, so she would not stop bothering me about giving her banana in this weird accent. She would call it a banana until my parents came home with the banana. And finally, my last story, I honestly don't remember the context of the story, but I remember what she said to me word for word, and it was really funny. If I remember correctly, I was just joking around with her until she screamed at me, "You are very, 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 infinity 100 fat." My jaw dropped. Where did she learn that? She could barely read. Like, keep in mind she is 5 years old. My final words are, kids are weird and the pandemic has only made them weirder. Kabi, on to you.
Nirvana's actually crazy, even whenever I see her. For me, I have a lot of stories from online school. Online school is such a, how should I say this, interesting experience. A lot of my teachers took a long time to adjust to online learning. So the first year of being online, the teachers had a very hard time teaching the students. There was one specific teacher that just couldn't get the hang of computers and the online platform. During one of his classes, he put us all into a breakout room without meaning to. Then he spent the rest of the class trying to get the students out of the breakout room while students were leaving the class. And while all of this was going on, he kept complaining and got very frustrated. It was very funny to listen to with the online platform. And eventually the principal had to come in and sort everything out.
The principal?
Yeah, the principal. Another story I had related to online school was during an English class where students kept disturbing the class and playing very, very loud random audio while the teacher was trying to speak. The audio ranged from TikTok sounds like TikTok songs, Among Us sound effects, Bengali nursery rhymes, Hindi music, and the American national anthem.
Why American?
I have no idea. Not even the Canadian national anthem, the American. That was a very strange class, to say the least, but it was really funny to watch playing out. I kept muting my mic and turning off my camera just to laugh. The teacher also didn't really make an attempt to stop them. She just politely asked the students to keep their mics muted and listen to the lesson, but of course they didn't listen to the teacher, so she just kind of had to deal with it for the rest of the class.
Your school has some issues, and your class seems chaotic. But that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you for listening to us ramble for so long. We hope that you have learned something new about COVID or about your mental health. If you enjoyed this podcast, be sure to come back for episode 2. Until then, Nuri and Kabi, out.
Bye.